Hi everyone, I'm Joe Borgia. The NBA has an experimental rule this season we are testing on a one-year trial, the Coach's Challenge. This video is going to walk you through the rule and the procedures. Let's start with the rule. Each team will have one challenge per game. The head coach can challenge any personal foul called against his team throughout the entire game. In the first 46 minutes of the game, or first 3 minutes of overtime, the head coach can also challenge a called goaltend, basket interference against his team, or an out of bounds where his team is not awarded possession.
And how about this? For the second time out here in Vegas, with this new experiment, we got a coach's challenge.
To initiate a challenge, a team must call a timeout prior to the ball being given to a free throw shooter, prior to the ball being given to a player throwing the ball in, or prior to a referee tossing a jump ball. The head coach must immediately signal for a challenge by twirling his index finger upward, similar to the replay signal. An official will confirm that the event being challenged is within the rules, and the official will then signal for replay. At this point, the courtside administrator will illuminate the challenge lights at the scorer's table, with the light closest to the challenging team's bench blinking. For personal foul challenges, the crew chief will make the final ruling. All other challenges will be determined by the replay center official.
Well, the challenge light is on for the first time.
To change the call on the court, the official must have clear and conclusive visual evidence. If the challenge is successful, the call will be changed and the team will retain its timeout, unless that timeout was used as a mandatory TV timeout. Now, let's see what else can be reviewed during a challenge. During a review for a personal foul, the official may also look at the following: whether the correct player was assessed the foul, whether another foul tied to the play occurred first, continuation, in other words, whether the player was fouled in the act of shooting, whether goaltending or basket interference occurred, and other reviewable matters covered under current NBA rules. For the other two types of challenges, goaltending and basket interference, or out of bounds, current NBA replay rules apply.
Coming up next year during the regular season, coaches will be allowed a challenge.
Now, Jason Phillips, Vice President, Replay Operations, will take us through some plays, starting with fouls called on drives to the basket.
In our first play, we have a successful fast break layup where Jeremy Lin is called for a foul on Goran Dragic. Had Toronto challenged the foul called against their team, the crew chief would have used instant replay to determine if there is clear and conclusive evidence that there was no illegal contact by Lin. Having seen this evidence, the foul on Lin would have been overturned, and since Dragic had already gathered the ball when the official's whistle sounded, the basket would still count and Toronto would inbound the ball as after any other successful basket. Now let's take a look at an actual coach's challenge from the Las Vegas Summer League. On this transition play, a blocking foul is called on Ahmed Hill of Brooklyn for being in the restricted area. The Brooklyn head coach calls a timeout and informs officials that he would like to challenge the foul that was called against his team. Upon review of the play, the crew chief not only sees that Hill was outside of the restricted area, but also that he was in a legal guarding position. Having clear and conclusive evidence, the crew chief overturned the call from a blocking foul on Hill to an offensive foul on number 18 of Croatia. On this play from the Las Vegas Summer League, Lindell Wigington drives to the basket and a defensive foul is called on defender Matisse Thybulle. The Philadelphia coach calls a timeout and immediately challenges the foul called against his team. After the review of the play by the crew chief, there is clear and conclusive evidence that Thybulle did not foul Wigington, but his teammate, Zaire Smith, did foul Wigington. Since the illegal contact by Smith occurred after the gather on the drive to the basket, Wigington would still be awarded 2 free throws. Here we will see Russell Westbrook drive to the basket and a defensive foul is called on Cody Zeller. Had this play been challenged by Charlotte, not only would the crew chief look at the contact by Zeller, but also at the push in the back by Steven Adams prior to the contact by Zeller. Since the push by Adams is tied to the play, meaning it is proximate to the time and distance of the play, it would be considered clear and conclusive evidence, and the foul on Zeller would be overturned and changed to an offensive foul on Adams. With the challenge being successful, Charlotte would retain their timeout unless it was a mandatory TV timeout. Also note that the game clock would be reset to the time of the illegal contact by Adams, and Charlotte would then inbound the ball on the sideline at the free throw line extended. Let's take a look at the contact on this play. As Andrew Wiggins goes up to finish on his drive to the basket, a defensive foul is called on defender Nikola Mirotic. If New Orleans had chosen to challenge this play, the crew chief would have seen clear and conclusive evidence of an offensive foul by observing Wiggins leading with his foot and initiating illegal contact with Mirotic. After review of the play, officials would have changed the play from a defensive foul on Mirotic to an offensive foul on Wiggins.
Now, let's look at some other shooting fouls and an offensive basket interference call.
On this play, Jonathan Isaac will be called for fouling the jump shooter, C.J. Miles. If Orlando chose to challenge this play, the crew chief, with the assistance of the replay center, would see clear and conclusive evidence that no illegal contact occurred and that the call should be overturned. In this situation, since the whistle was blown while the ball was loose, the game would be resumed with a jump ball at center circle between any two players who were in the game at the time of the whistle. Here we will see a coach's challenge from the Las Vegas Summer League. Kevin Hervey is called for a defensive foul during the jump shot by Justin Wright Foreman. The Oklahoma City coach called a timeout and immediately informed the officials that he wanted to challenge the called foul. At this point, the crew chief informed the scorers table and courtside administrator of the team's challenge. The crew chief then reviewed the play. He saw clear and conclusive evidence that the defender legally got a piece of the ball and that there was no foul on the play. Since the defensive foul was overturned and the ball was loose when the calling official blew her whistle, the game was resumed with a jump ball at the center circle between any two players who were in the game at the time of the whistle. On this play, a defensive foul will be called on Colin Sexton for not allowing the jump shooter, Stephen Curry, room to return to the floor. Had Cleveland challenged the foul call on Sexton, the crew chief would have seen clear and conclusive evidence that Draymond Green, who was tied to the play, created illegal contact by pushing Sexton into Curry. Seeing this, the play would have been overturned from a defensive foul on Sexton to an offensive foul on Green. The clock would also be reset to the time of the illegal contact by Green. Here we will see another example of a foul that would be overturned. A foul was called on Kelly Oubre Jr. for making illegal contact to the arm of Yusuf Nurkic during his putback attempt. If Phoenix were to challenge this play, not only would the crew chief look at the contact by Oubre Jr., but also at the possible illegal contact by Dragan Bender and any other player proximate to time and distance to the play. In this case, there is clear and conclusive evidence that neither Oubre Jr. nor Bender fouled Nurkic. Therefore, the foul call would be overturned to a no call. Since the ball was loose when the official blew his whistle, the game would be resumed with a jump ball at the center circle between any two players who were in the game at the time of the whistle. Let's look at this next play closely, as there are multiple factors to consider. Had Houston challenged this offensive foul called on Clint Capella for using his shoulder to dislodge the defender, Justin Jackson, the crew chief would have used instant replay to see that there was clear and conclusive illegal contact by Jackson prior to the offensive foul by Capella. The challenge by Houston would be successful, and the play would be overturned and changed from an offensive foul on Capella to a defensive foul on Jackson. Be advised that neither a possible 3-second violation nor a possible traveling violation is a reviewable matter during a coach's challenge. Here we will see another coach's challenge from the Las Vegas Summer League. On this play, Chinanu Onuaku is called for offensive basket interference. Prior to the ball being inbounded, the Boston coach calls a timeout and immediately informs officials that he wants to challenge the call on the floor. Upon review, the replay center official sees clear and conclusive evidence that Onuaku actually stopped his hand just short of touching the ball while it was in the cylinder. Therefore, this is a legal basket. With the successful challenge, 2 points were added to Boston's score, and they retained their timeout.